What is up, guys? Welcome back to OverTakes. This is Misfit, and today we are going to be recapping Week 1 in the Overwatch League. Man, was it a great weekend, guys. I was so stoked for it to start, and the matches didn't disappoint. Of course, there's a lot of things that happened. We had teams doing better than we thought, teams doing worse than we thought. You know, the normal Week 1 stuff that we get in the Overwatch League. Overreactions, underwhelming performances, all the good stuff. You know, people just going crazy on the internet and everywhere else, myself included. But it was a fun weekend, guys. Also, before we dive into Week 1, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me. Thank you very much for all of your support. It's greatly appreciated. And if you're new, welcome to the channel, guys. I do Overwatch League content 2 to 3 times a week, depending on if there's breaking news, something we want to react to. But I usually do reviews of the week, set up some preview stuff, and we talk about Overwatch League here. And the key thing is I throw out the topics, I start talking about it, and I want you guys to comment down below and get the conversation going. That's what it's all about. It's an open forum. We talk about Overwatch League, Overwatch if you want to, the game. But yeah, thank you very much for stopping by, and let's dive into Week 1. All right. We're going to start off with a couple things. We're going to dive into the big storylines, you know, the matches and whatnot. But first, I have a general plan this time. I know, shocking, guys, right? So, well, there's just a lot of things I wanted to talk to you guys about and start the conversation going with. I couldn't touch on everything. All right, let's talk about the weekend in general, my general thoughts and everything. It's been a long break. Obviously, we've had a good 6-7 months, somewhere in there. October was the last we saw the Overwatch League with the championship. Here we are. They usually start in February. They started in April this year, as we all know, because we watched the matches and all that. And I just got to say a couple things about the broadcast and all that. Everything looks better, for sure. I mean, that's the starter. Last year, they didn't have time really to perfect the online viewing experience and all that. I mean, now we have drops via YouTube. We got a whole bunch of different things going on, and I tested it out. It worked for my account. I don't know, you know, if anyone had problems or anything like that, but now we got drops, and they're mocking people with the drops. Things are, they're getting a little funny with that. I think the overall look of the broadcast was great. The desk was great. I mean, they have sets and, you know, kind of like fake stages and all that stuff. Everything is set up really good. The visuals are fantastic. Everything is clear and concise and just perfect for watching an Overwatch League match. The desk itself, I thought they were great. You got Zoe, Costa, and Reinforced. They always provide a lot of fun and all that kind of thing. It's not as polished as if they had some other guys on there, but you know what? Sometimes I don't want that. I want fun. I want the desk to be fun. I don't need hard news, if you know what I mean. Yeah, but these guys dive into stuff and they know their shit when they're talking about it and all that. But I want it to be a fun experience. I want to have fun watching this. I don't need super nerdball stuff, you know, like you get on some NFL broadcasts and stuff like that. I want it to be a little bit more fun, a little more loose, and they provided that. And I love the addition of Danny. I think he's fantastic. He also provides a translator for interviews, which is great, but he added a little spice in there, you know, the whole thing with the Mayhem, him picking the Mayhem and everyone else picking the Rain in that whole match and them just kind of bowing to him and all that. That was fun. And he's the smartest man in the desk, and you guys know my feelings on that. Hashtag bring the Mayhem. We're going to discuss that match and some other stuff in just a couple minutes, but yeah, so the broadcast was great. The casting was fantastic, as usual. I loved... Obviously, we had Uber and Mr. X and Brennan Sideshow were great. And then we had Achilles and Avril on the Asian broadcasts and ZP and Doa. All of them were fantastic. It just adds so much when these guys are that good. I loved all of the stuff. Yeah, it's a new season. It takes a minute to get the ball rolling, your feet wet and all that. But yeah, as the weekend progressed, it just got better and better. And it was fantastic. It was fun. And I love the fact that we're starting off this way. There's no, everything's kind of meh. Everything looked fantastic, sounded fantastic. And it brought just a lot of fun to the matches and everything, which besides the play itself, you need the excitement and you need the fun factor in there. And these guys all brought it. And props to them. And I'm looking forward to seeing what goes on with that in the future. So let's talk what happened this weekend now. We talked about the broadcast and all that stuff and the outer shell of what happened. Let's get into the meat of it now. I'm going to use more cliches than ever before, apparently. Turning the page, moving forward. So let's talk the schedule. All right, Friday. I'm just going to run down the scores really quick, and then we'll talk about a select couple of matches that mattered and where things happened that were unexpected. So Friday, we started the weekend off. Houston won over Dallas 3-2. The Shock beat the Gladiators 3-1. And then we moved on to Asia. Shanghai shut out the Guangzhou Charge. The Chengdu Hunters took care of the Valiant 3-1. And the Fusion took care of the Seoul Dynasty 3-1. Moving back to the East on Saturday, or the West on Saturday. Toronto beat Vancouver 3-1. The Mayhem take care of the Reign 3-1. Dallas beats the Gladiators 3-1. And that wraps up Saturday. Sunday, we have Seoul shutting out Guangzhou. Chengdu with the big surprise of the weekend. I am going to say something about that. 3-0 over the Dragons. Then Philly shut out Valiant. Houston with another big upset. 3-2 over the Shock. Mayhem win 3-1 over the Titans. And Toronto closed the weekend off with a 3-2 win over Atlanta. First off, my Sunday expectations were changed early on before I even got up. So normally, like I said, Sunday games seem kind of meh. Well, a couple teams came out and changed that whole viewpoint with Chengdu and Houston, making it very interesting and exciting viewing experience on Sunday. Capped off by a final match that was fantastic too, by the way. The matches this weekend were fantastic. And this is what I was talking about when I said this is going to be the best season ever because every team is leveled up. This is the one thing. Well, maybe not every team. A bunch of teams have leveled up. And it's not as set in stone as it was before. Like I said, in my power rankings, stuff like that, that's why I kind of chump teams. It's like these teams are all good in their own way. Map pools, certain maps they're good on, certain maps they're bad on. I love this. I love the parity. It's something, if you're an NFL fan, and especially going back to the 90s and the mid to late 90s in the early 2000s with the NFL, parity was a big buzzword because we had a lot of teams buying teams, and before the salary cap, there was no parity. It was kind of set in stone. You had Buffalo, you had occasionally Denver and Pittsburgh doing things in the playoffs, and then in the NFC, it was Dallas and San Francisco and everybody else. So the parity was something that they wanted. So everyone kind of got an equal playing footing, so to speak. You have upsets. You have teams that surprise you. You have teams that fail your expectations. And we're getting that this year in this league with the level of play. I just think the matches, a couple of them I did not get to see. I'm not going to lie. I didn't get to see Toronto, Vancouver. I was at work. I had things to do. I have life things to do too. And a couple of them I knew were going to, well, not new. Chengdu and the Valiant, I watched some highlights from that. I kind of fast forward, watched through it. Same thing with Shanghai and Guangzhou. But yeah, there are some of the teams that you expected to be meh or lower than that. They kind of were that. But they played better than expected in a couple of instances, with Vancouver being one of them. And the Valiant played a little bit better than I thought they were going to play. They still got beat 3-1 and 3-0. But they were a little bit not as trash-worthy as I thought. Guangzhou, opposite way, they were bad this weekend. They were just not good. And I knew they weren't going to be great, but not a hot take. But starting off, they kind of looked subpar. Let's just put it that way. And it's not a long season, but there's a lot to go. Now, everybody's overreacting to things. And a couple of them being, one in particular, Gladiators 0-2, Houston 2-0. Here's my take on this. I just want to talk about this first. Gladiators aren't that bad. Houston's not necessarily that level of good. One team is playing above where you would expect them to be, and one team is not. They're just not cohesive yet. They had flashes and moments where they looked good against San Francisco and Dallas. They also had a tough schedule. Not saying Houston didn't, because they had almost a tougher schedule than the Gladiators, and they came out 2-0. Shock did early season shock things. It's one of those things with the Shock, too, and I'm not diminishing anything Houston did, because Houston took it to them. But it feels like sometimes the Shock fuck around. And they have this chip on their shoulder. You know, they smashed the Gladiators on Friday. So they went into this match against Houston thinking they were playing last year's Houston. And I think they were just kind of lax in a way. And Houston came out and kicked them in the teeth. And they didn't know what to do about that. They had to grind 2 maps out. And by the skin of their teeth on both of them, in my opinion. They were lucky to get to that point. And then Chengdu just ended it on Havana, where they looked like they were going to clutch out again. But thank God someone on Houston said no this time. No, you're not doing your bullshit this time. But yeah, it doesn't concern me about the Shock. They're one of those teams. It doesn't make sense to me what I'm about to say either. But I don't like the term good loss, because a loss is a loss and it's always bad. But psychologically, they're a team that needs someone to slap them in the face. And if they don't get that, they get cocky as fuck. And when they get cocky as fuck, things like this happen. I think that Houston is a good team. I said that before the season. I had them I forget where exactly, middle of NA. Right now, they're looking better than I even thought. And one of the reasons is happy. But firstly, let's hit on their first match, too. Let's talk about, I guess we're talking about the Outlaws. Worthy of talking about this week. Not for the normal reasons that in the past couple of years when we talk about the Outlaws, where we're doing what the fuck were the Outlaws doing against X team fill in the blank. Generally a bad team below what your expected level of Houston was. Boston, etc., and what have you. But they came out and beat Dallas. Hey, I said Dallas is going to be good, guys. Without Eggsy, they're not as good. But Houston got tricked around. They were tricking around Houston a little bit, they were not memeing necessarily, but they were trying to play things that they thought they could do something with. And Houston weeded through that and beat them, which I thought was fantastic. They impressed me a lot. Happy is a nut. I forgot how good he was, I guess. You know, it was one of those things where I was kind of like, him and Lynx are kind of the same level, you know, and no, Happy's way better. That dude is insane. You get him on certain heroes, and he is near unstoppable. And he proved to be really good. Their tank line is looking really good, too. Juby looked decent. Dallas didn't look bad either. See, that's the thing in a lot of these cases, in a lot of these games, teams didn't look bad. I would even go with some of the teams that potentially got, won or were playing in matches looked worse than some of the teams that started 0-2 or 1-1. Florida being one of them. Florida, we'll talk about in a little bit. But Houston, I'm liking where they're going. This team looks great. I know I thought they were going to go 0-2 this weekend, and I said, don't implode, Houston fans. Don't blow your brains up on this one either, 2-0. Relax. Got stuff to work on. You're 2-0. You're looking good for the May Melee tournament. And, you're behind Florida, who is beatable. Very, very beatable. If they don't get the right maps, that team, they're in big trouble. And we saw that yesterday and on Saturday. But Houston looking good. I like where they're going. Dallas didn't look terrible at all, which it wasn't a sloppy match. It was a weird match just because Dallas was running different stuff to try and play to their team's strengths, which without a hit they have hit scan players, guys. They don't have a god level hit scan like they did with Eggsy, is really the problem. If they had Eggsy in there, I don't know if this would have been different. It very well could have been. Houston played great, though. Houston has a lot to prove to people. And they also have Junkbuck, coaching difference maker, which I always go with coaching difference in any sport. You might have players that are on the same level as other teams, but you have Junkbuck and Harsha, and you can even throw Jake in there on that. they can coach guys up, figure things out. It works out. And I'm not saying that Rush is a bad coach. Kind of got, little handcuffed early on. But they're figuring out where they're at. Apparently, Hastro said that they have a hit scan player coming. Now, I think the perfect guy for this is I'm a stan, is Dia. Dia fits what they need perfectly. Fantastic hit scan, can cover some long-range hit scan, plays the McCree really well. He's just exactly what they need. The problem is getting him here with visa issues, with COVID, and all that kind of stuff. It's not like before where visas were kind of a pain in the ass. Now they're even more so. So we'll see what happens. Chances are, if they get somebody that's not already based in the United States, chances of getting them here before May Melee, probably a long shot. But they didn't look terrible. Houston just played better and looked better. They were well coordinated. I was very impressed with Houston. The next match that we had in our previews was Philly Seoul. And life is like a box of Dynasty reared its head in this one. So everybody's saying Philadelphia is done. Not me. Side note. I said Philadelphia is going to be fine. I also said they were going to lose this match, but it wouldn't surprise me if they 3-0'd them or did something where Seoul is just hot garbage. And Seoul, I don't even want to tackle this. They were close, and every map was close. It really was. But they just do things at certain times where, you got gesture feeding, Prophet kind of not working with the team. There's coordination issues again and constantly with this team. It just bugs the crap out of me. On paper, they're close to Philly. But Philly, even with guys, I didn't think they were going to have enough coordination and playtime together. They still managed to beat them with Toby and Hotba in there instead of their normal lineup. They just did Seoul things as usual. The normal, we're just going to yeet in here with gesture. Sometimes he's legendary, but like in regular season games, bro is like Eli Manning. You get Eli Manning on a Sunday game with the Giants against, Tampa back in the day. He'd throw 3 interceptions, and one of them cost them the game. You get him in the playoffs, he can't miss a pass. I feel like gesture and Prophet to an extent are like this for the Dynasty. They are at times clueless when they're playing in the regular season. Force things in, they make mistakes. I don't know what it is exactly, but it's the attempt at two guys trying to do hero play sometimes, and the rest of their team did not play great either. But Fitz is always good, though. I don't know what it is. Fitz, to me, is the most consistent guy on this team. Bar none. Creative looked decent enough. I think without those two guys, there were points. And Prophet occasionally was having his Prophet moments because that's what that dude does. But Philadelphia looked better than I thought they were going to look in this match. I knew they were going to be fine. Did they look great? No, not necessarily. But, they have some stuff to work on. They have new guys, new synergies, and play styles. You have Hotba and Manu who played together. Obviously, the difference is not being on that New York team. They seem to be okay. Toby is Toby. It's fine. It's main support. You want your main support to be decent. He doesn't have to be a god, but decent enough to get you bail you out of situations, make decent plays. And Toby did that. They just looked better. And Toby had maybe a little revenge against Seoul. I don't know. And he also had a little inside info, I'm assuming, too. He kind of knows how these guys operate, and you probably could help them figure out a couple of things to get them off their game, I guess. But Philly took care of business, and good things from them. I think they're going to look, just like I said, they're going to be just fine. Just fine in my book. The narrative on them at the beginning of the season might have been a little overblown. I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. And who knows when they're going to get their other guys. They could show up in the next couple of weeks. We don't know. Let's talk about the next match that we had on the list. That was Florida and Atlanta. Okay, this one, flat out, I'm happy with the end result. The Mayhem came into this against the Reign. I thought they were pretty close. I thought this was going to be 3-2 Mayhem. The Mayhem looked a lot better in certain... Now, the map pool favored them a lot more. For the style that they're playing, they're doing the double bubble thing. They do that better than rush comps. They're trying different things with that. It feels like Gargoyle's not comfortable on Diva in that. I don't know. And maybe it's him and Oj need to work some things out, and that one seems to work the best. Oj looks the best when he's playing Winston in a double bubble. He looked decent enough on Rhine. Eichenwald map, I know people are like throwing it away as we're not talking about it. That was pathetic. That was platinum level bullshit there. Atlanta is good at that comp, and Florida is not even in the range. Because they had problems against Vancouver playing the same type of comps on maps that are like this. Vancouver gave them a fight. And Atlanta, I think if Atlanta had a different map pool, we could be looking at a different score. Atlanta is a good team. They're 0-2, but they're not bad. I don't think they're bad. Obviously, record says that they are currently, but everything that they've been doing, it wasn't terrible. But there was just certain comps they are not good at. They're good at the rush, the brawly stuff. The Mayhem are good at, like, I don't know what to call it other than slow double bubble. And when they run rush, it's hardly that. They run it with Sigma. It's just a brawl comp that's like slow momentum thing. I don't know what to call it other than I don't know. And then they like flanking with it too, which it works to an extent. But that's going to get caught out. People are going to figure that out real fast. And they got to figure something out with that. Atlanta needs to figure out what they can do outside of a brawly comp where you have Gator playing Reinhardt. His Winston didn't look terrible, but Oj was just better. Their DPS are filthy. That is not going to be the problem. I'm worried about the... and actually, Iris impressed me in this match too. Without Iris and some of these fights and things, they would have been fucked. More than they already got fucked in this, outside of Eichenwald. Gator and Hawk, they came back in the last match of the weekend. They looked way better. I liked what they were doing. I don't think they're terrible, but there are definitely things to work on. And it's a lot of the Winston double bubble stuff and, the other comp that's prevalent right now. They're good at the rush, good at the brawling. And that goes with Massa, too. He's better in that. I mean, remember, he was a GOATS guy. A really good GOATS, Lucio and all that. Kind of similar-ish, where you got to know when to hit the speed boost and all that and getting guys in and out. And he's really, really good at that. I mean, he saved them a couple times in this match, too. Like I said, they have some stuff to work on. Yaki and BQB are good. There are occasions, though, where Yaki feeds on May. I'm just going to flat out say it. And when you have these occasions where that happens, it's not good, man. And I don't like the Sigma all the time. It's gonna be one note and very traceable by not even a great coach, someone just watching the game. And they were saying this on the second broadcast against Vancouver, where they're splitting off into, you have the BAP with the McCree, and then you have the Sigma with the Reinhardt backing him up and the Lucio trying to flanking. It's just kind of telegraphed. I mean, yeah, it's a strategy and it works and it's workable, but they need to work on some other things. They have some work to do for sure. Atlanta has some work to do too. They need to clean up their game a little bit, more of it on the maps and things like that. I am enjoying the side note. I am enjoying the fact that we're getting map to map and who's good on what maps and teams like it's not all, the dust hasn't settled, but we're starting we're starting to peer into what's going to potentially be a thing where certain teams are good on certain maps, certain map styles. That's the beauty of Overwatch. It's not the same map over and over again. You have different maps. Some teams are good on assault. Some teams are good on hybrid. Some teams are good on control. And then some teams are good on all of them. I think that these teams need to figure out their problems in these comps. They need to be more diverse. It's the only way to be right now. And this is before we even hit hero pools, which we're going to hit next. I believe in the next tournament. I believe it's June and 2 of the tournaments are, and 2 of them aren't hero pooled. But I'll figure that out at some... We don't need to talk about that now. So, next up on the slate, we have the Chengdu Hunters shutting out the Shanghai Dragons. Oh, boy. Why? Why, Chengdu? Why are you doing this to me? I said you're going to be good. Don't go making me sound like an idiot saying Shanghai's the best team in the league, bar none. There's nobody even close to them in the East, and you come out and you 3-0 them. Jesus. You're making me look like a moron. I still think Shanghai's the most talented team. Chengdu just took it to him. Gaga's good. I knew that dude was going to do something. Leave and Jinmu are frightening. Jinmu sometimes with all the new people coming in with Chengdu, you forget that Jinmu is really freaking good. And you forgot that Leave was good too. All around, Chengdu this week played really, really well. Shanghai they didn't look bad per se, but I don't think they were ready for the level of aggression that Chengdu came out with. They just kind of took it to them. I mean, the only map that they were close on was the last map, which was Gibraltar. I mean, they shut him out on Oasis. They buried him on Eichenwald. And if there was a team that looked potentially worse than Florida on Eichenwald, it was Shanghai. Yeah, so Shanghai got caught with their pants down, or as the Sideshow might say, their pants around their trousers. I can't really say bad things about Chengdu. I'm not going to. They were phenomenal. If this team continues to play like this, I'm going to have to change my narrative from Shanghai being the best team over there to Chengdu being the best team. Now, I didn't watch this match really intently. I watched it kind of like I did some of the other Asian matches. I saw 3-0 and I was intrigued. So, I mean, obviously I watched more than I thought because I thought it might be a 3-0 the other way or a 3-1 or something close or Shanghai playing the match, perhaps. But Shanghai just got absolutely fucked. There's no other way to say it. I don't know how the fate thing's going to go. Beginning to wonder if some of the other people were right about that. He was definitely outplayed by Gaga. And on a whole, top to bottom, Chengdu just buried them. Shanghai they were not able to do anything. And Chengdu played infinitely better. I just don't... There's nothing else I can say about it other than Shanghai was absolutely hot garbage in this game. And hopefully they learn from it, much like the next match we're going to talk about in a sec here, because we're starting to get a little bit short on time. I've been rambling for forever here. But, yeah, Shanghai needs to get things together. They need to work with Fate and Void needs to be better. Their supports need to be a little bit... It was one of those Li Zhegang games, somewhat, where he fed a little bit, but... They just look terrible. And I don't know if they look terrible because they are terrible or because Chengdu caught them off guard that bad. And I think with Chengdu and with Houston, they're going into matches where people are seeing the name, much like Shanghai did late 2019 and last year early on. They see the name and they're like, okay, cakewalk, maybe a little wacky. We might lose a map. And they have their guard down and they get absolutely slapped. And that's one of my impressions I've gotten from a couple of these teams. People have to take them seriously. You have to take every team seriously, minus maybe a couple. But everybody now, for the most part, is upgraded. Chengdu is way upgraded. You cannot sleep on this team. And Shanghai did, and they got absolutely destroyed for it. Props to Chengdu. That was a fantastic win. Now on to the last match we're going to talk about, which kind of wasn't on the slate of things to talk about, but the Houston Outlaws made it on the slate. So Houston comes in playing San Francisco last night. What do y'all think? I mean, y'all think 3-1, Houston gets the map because they're better, right? Yeah, no. Houston came out and they were punishing the Shock. I was thoroughly impressed as to what they were doing early on. San Francisco had no answers, and they looked absolutely sloppy as fuck. No other way to put it on Lijiang Tower. That was a map that you would expect them to be the ones dictating the pace, dictating the outcome. But Houston turned the tables on them and beat them there. They tied on Blizzard World. It kind of felt like the Shock sort of figured out that Houston's for real at this point. But then Houston just absolutely just shut them down on Dorado. That was one of the best holds on Dorado that I've seen, other than that one where, was it last year? I think Guangzhou got an inch or something like that. Shanghai had to just touch the cart, essentially, to move it to win the map. Other than that, this one was fantastic. Look, San Francisco did not play well. They have players where they should not be in these situations. And this is a scenario that I was saying. They get cocky. They beat the crap out of the Gladiators, who everyone said was going to beat them. And, you have Violet going off on McCree. You have Super doing super things. And, this FD God doing the boopy thing. And everybody's all happy and shits and giggles. And we're just going to go in and just absolutely fuck the Outlaws in the next week. But sorry to break it to you guys. The Outlaws were the ones doing the fucking in this. And you had to grip hard because you should have lost 3-0 in this. And that's my estimation. They gritted it out. I mean, the 2 maps that they came back and won, you can even go on Oasis and say that those 2 maps were close. There were moments where San Francisco was pulling away, but Houston nutted up and came back. Now, Chengdu and Piggy are better than I thought they were going to be, but, I'm going to talk about Happy again, but Dante is a god. He is so underrated. He is the most underrated player in the Overwatch League. You can clip that. You can send it to whoever. I don't care. That dude carried them last year, and he makes plays in every match. This guy is their bread and butter. He is the best player on their team, and he deserves to get talked about a lot more than he does. The players know how good he is. I just think the general population gets, and myself included, you get enamored with the names like Carpe and Prophet and Fleta. This guy is as good and is on their level, and he doesn't get the props. I mean, he gets props, but he doesn't get the props that those guys get. And it's about time that he starts getting them. And in this match, he was fantastic. In fact, on my Royale leagues, I think I had him on 3 of my Royale fantasy teams because I think he's that good. And he's a value pick there, too. At least he was. I don't know what he's going to be next week, but we'll see what happens. But outcomes to be decided in those matches. But Houston proved a lot in this match. They proved that they can hang with anybody, and when San Francisco finally woke up, they didn't let up Houston. They stopped them on they got stopped on their attempt on Havana, and you're going, well, here's where, San Francisco's going to do San Francisco things and blah, blah, blah. San Francisco came back out. They started moving that cart, and I'm like, well, it was a great effort. I'm like saying, I'm saying exactly kind of what Uber and Mr. X were doing in the explanation. The clock striking midnight, all the things, and then the fire strike from Chengdu through the amp matrix takes out Violet. Huge. Which in turn gives him Earth Shatter, where he flank shatters them off the cart in overtime and just ends it. That was the game winner, as they say. That was the walk-off Earth Shatter. And it was unbelievable to watch that. I thought it was fantastic. They did not give up. They did not crumble under the specter of the champions and all that bullshit. They came out and played. And fucking props to the Outlaws. I have never said that. Minus the power ranking stuff. I don't give props to the Outlaws because of the show. I, in fact, rag on the Outlaws. I can't rag on them this week, and I won't, because they are a superior team to any team that they've had, and they're not overhyped. The hype is underhyped for this team. I'm not going to go crazy after 1 week on anything. That's my theme on this a little bit. There are teams that are 0-2 that aren't that bad. There are teams that are 2-0 that need a lot of work. And there are teams that are 2-0 like Chengdu, where you're scratching your head going, I guess they are that good. Same thing with Houston. I am going, yeah, they are that good. Okay. They beat Dallas with a man down, and they beat San Francisco. The Dallas game was closer than the Shock game, in my opinion. They did something that they also don't do, and they won Map 5 and a Map 6. Well, they technically didn't win Map 5 against San Francisco. They won a deciding map in a match. Factors that, lost them a lot of matches before, they nutted up. They have players now that will take the reins and go. They're not going to crumble as far as we've seen so far. San Francisco, I think they need to take their slap in the face and do what they normally do, which is regroup and go, oh yeah, we're good, but these guys are as good, kind of thing. And that's what I have to say about the matches and stuff. General overall feel on some of the, just real quick to end this, the standings and all that. A couple of things. Florida needs to work on stuff, even though they're 2-0. That's a fraud, in my opinion, right now. They are lucky to be there. Houston nutted their way up to a 2-0. They deserve to be there. Same thing with Chengdu. They slapped Shanghai, and they did what they should have done to Guangzhou. Seoul is Seoul, as usual, 1-1. Box of Dynasty. You never know what you're going to get. Toronto, also, just to throw that out there, Toronto's 2-0. I think that is justifiable considering who they played. I thought Atlanta would beat them, but I thought Toronto was kind of close. I didn't expect Toronto to play super, super fantastic. They played really well against Atlanta, and Atlanta's 0-2, and I think that's kind of a fraud with them too. Much like Florida, but with the opposite record, they need to work on some things to get through some of these map pools and maps where they might not be able to play the ideal comp. Some of these teams have to do that, and Florida's a big one there, and Atlanta's a big one there. Gladiators, I don't think they're an 0-2 team. I think they'll bounce back at some point. They just got to get some synergy. Philadelphia looked great. I knew they wouldn't skip a beat with these guys in there. I did think they were going to lose to Seoul though, because I thought there would be a little bit of synergetic issues going on in the first match. But guys, that's going to do it for my review of week 1. So I'm glad you guys stopped by. Thank you very much. Everybody out there, thanks for all your support. Thanks for all the likes, subscribes. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. Now, get down there and get some comments going. Let's talk about week 1. I want to hear what you guys have to say, what you thought, as far as the matches went and teams and all that kind of stuff. And the broadcast, if you liked it, didn't like it, whatever was going on in your head. I want to see what you guys have to say. If you're new, thank you very much for checking us out. And if you could hit a like, hit a subscribe, that would be great. This is Misfit. I'm out. Everybody have a good rest of your day. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you in the next one.